Meet our main character, Aikido. He is sprinting down the street like his life depends on it. Bursting, this is not but the hard Aikido. Back with trembling hands, he unboxes the cartridge. He slides the virtual reality helmet on, shutting out the real world. His blue, this is not his room. And when he looks down, that definitely is not his body. Panics, a gruff, stunned by, wait, Kara calls him Prince Kshatriya. That is when the horror hits. He is inside the game as Kshatriya Ignis, the useless ninth son of the Demon King. A holograph, but wait, one, Kara, stepping out, he asks, the mission, this, Kshatriya, sensing the orc's suspicion, the prince goes quiet. With a subtle twitch of his finger, he summons the interface again. He leads the squad into the dense, suffocating forest. The orcs follow, gripping their weapons, doubting their weak leader. The ruins are overgrown with vines. A soldier gapes, asking if the prince used magic to find this lost location. He orders them to check the gates. Suddenly, a blinding golden aura explodes from the prince's body. The power surge shakes him to his core. A system chime rings out. Level up. The orcs struggle with the heavy doors and call for aid. Kshatriya steps in, feeling a spark of hope. He is not alone on this journey. That special Carrick mutters that dwarves must have dug this place out. Even the original Kshatriya had no clue this existed. And so, the creature he reaches, no matter. He'll save it for the day he transcends his limits. With a mere thought, the gear vanishes into his dimensional inventory, stored away in an instant. The interface panic grips. Too late. Crimson energy coalesces in the enemy ranks, a ticking time bomb of destruction. Boom. The blast wave erupts, scattering his allies like ragdolls. Thus choked, it's the general. The red horde descends like locusts upon the recovering troops. Steel clashes with flesh, but it's not a battle, it's a massacre. The prince watches in horror as his allies fall, one by one. He can't just watch, he needs power now. Gritting his teeth, the prince decides to steal a kill for experience points. He targets a distracted enemy and charges in blindly. Launching *clash, terror hijack. He lands. Warning. It's over. *clash. There's no. The prince he frantically swipes the air for the system menu. Nothing. He checks his skill tab. Empty. He is powerless. Panicked, a cold in the distance, a blinding beam of destruction tears through the air. Time slows down. The boy realizes with crystal clarity, if he dies here, he dies for real. He lies broken, gasping for air that won't come. His vision blurs into darkness. Through the haze, the general stalks closer to verify the kill. The enemy raises a glowing hand for the finisher, but the system beats him to it. The red bar empties completely. HP 0. The prince is dead. Darkness, panic, a blinding, from the brilliant, stunned into reality, the scarlet, pathetic fools. He scoffs. Did they really think they could defy us with such meager numbers? He raises his hand to order the final purge but freezes. A strange, pulsating light erupts from the battlefield. What is this energy? An awakening. The prince rises from the ashes, draped in a majestic golden aura. A notification chimes, sweet as victory, skill acquired, telekinesis. He stares at his hands, bewildered. He didn't train for this. The power is simply there. The status window flickers with new data. His eyes widen. He is no longer just a prince. He has awakened the hidden subclass, Knight of Conquest. The general roars in fury, sensing the threat. Kill him. Tear him apart immediately. Nearby, Carrick stares at his liege, mouth agape, witnessing a miracle. Protect His Highness, the surviving soldiers scream, rallying their broken bodies for one last stand. They form a desperate meat shield around him, but the prince is calm. He looks down at the shattered dagger in his grip, his mind sensing with the system. Knight of Conquest. He scans his memory of the original game, but draws a blank. This class. It shouldn't exist. It's an anomaly. Where did this power come from? Before he can question it, golden energy floods the broken hilt. The shattered steel dissolves, reforming into a blade of pure, radiant light. Ancient spells flood his mind, instinctive and lethal. He doesn't just hold the power. He commands it. The king's true gift has finally awakened. He vaults over the front line, unleashing a torrential wave of golden energy that bathes his allies in light. The buff takes instant effect, causing the warrior's strength to surge uncontrollably. Fueled by this overflow of power, the orcs roar and charge to obliterate the enemy ranks. One enhanced orc delivers a single, devastating punch, crushing his opponent instantly. The beast men now dominate the battlefield with terrifying, renewed vigor. In mere moments, the tide of war shifts completely, and the prince's forces seize absolute control. The enemy general watches in horror as his soldiers are slaughtered one by one. To him, this sudden reversal is nothing short of an absurd nightmare. The prince, with a mighty he tries to call a truce, but his words die in his throat. With a single, precise execution, Carrick beheads the opposing general. A blue system window announces that all victory merits belong to the king. Immediately, 3 level-up notifications flash before the boy's eyes. Carrick stares at his own hand, still radiating that mysterious light, and questions the source of this newfound strength. Even with the battle over, the golden aura continues to pulse from his body. But inside his tent, the young man is in a cold sweat, desperately searching the menu for a log-out button. He forces Hypothesis 2. As insane as it sounds, this isn't a game anymore, this is his new reality. He may have been transported into the story or a parallel dimension. The hyperrealistic textures and the self-aware NPCs only fuel his suspicion. Even more disturbing is the lack of censorship. The gore is visceral and real. The realization that he could actually die here sends a shiver of terror down his spine. Striving to keep his sanity, he reminds himself of his role. He was born into this world as a privileged prince. He summons Carrick, who appears instantly at the tent's entrance. The guard is confused. Why does the prince want a training duel at this hour? The boy explains he needs to gauge his protector's level to plan their survival. Gripping a training sword, he shifts into a combat stance. The orc sighs, promising to go easy on him so he doesn't break anything. But the prince scolds him for such insolence toward royalty. He demands a battle with killing intent and lunges in for the first strike. Carrick raises his weapon, bracing for the impact. However, the prince's initial attack is clumsy and misses the mark completely. The young man's flurry of strikes bounces harmlessly off his opponent. Even when he smashes a massive boulder against the guard, Carrick stands like a statue, feeling no pain. With a casual swing of his weapon, Carrick generates a gust of wind that blasts the prince backward. The boy crashes to his knees, gasping for air. Panicked, the orc rushes over, cursing himself for using too much strength against his liege. Suddenly, a system notification chimes. Basic swordsmanship acquired. The boy is baffled since when did he learn how to wield a blade just by falling? A dormant memory awakens, clarifying the twisted rules of this world. Just like with his telekinesis, he realizes the cheat code. He gains skills by taking direct hits. Carrick tries to stop the training, but his leader interrupts him with a firm refusal. The prince stands up, planting his feet firmly on the dirt. With a maniacal smile, he declares that the real training starts now. Shooter rushes forward, brandishing his sword for a renewed assault. The prince's blade clashes against the orc's, sending a shower of sparks flying from the impact. Carrick watches in astonishment, realizing his opponent's form has instantly evolved. The warrior is confused. The boy was an amateur seconds ago. How could his technique improve this fast? Steel rings against steel as the duel echoes across the training grounds. The young man drifts across the ground, his focus sharpened to a razor's edge. With a defiant smirk, he asks if his movements are finally up to par. The prince then demands the orc's level. Carrick replies that he was level 21 last time he checked. Shooter mutters the number, calculating the power gap. His status window shows he is only level 7, but he isn't worried he'll catch up in no time. Unlike the natives who need appraisal spells, he has the player's privilege. The ability to see stats and manually distribute points is the ultimate weapon in this world. Steel flashes as the boy launches a high-flying assault against his opponent, sword raised high. Mid-air, he readies a surgical strike against Carrick. But a fleeting thought crosses his mind: is mere strength enough? No, that isn't the answer. The cold, hard truth hits him. He doesn't just need to grow. He needs to evolve faster than any living soul. This world belongs to the demonic arc of the legendary game Night Saga. The script dictates Zephyr's bloody rise to surpass his siblings and claim the Demon King's throne. Countless events lead to the finale, but only one matters: his ascension. The turning point arrives in the year 517, when Zephyr slaughters every single one of his siblings to seize power. The word all is a death sentence that includes him. But the calendar currently reads 512. Fate hasn't been sealed yet. His survival depends on rewriting the future, and the only path is to crush Zephyr's power with his own. Carrick suddenly interrupts his internal monologue, asking what he's doing, while the prince blinks in confusion. The orc reminds him of a crucial gathering scheduled for today, leaving the young man bewildered. His guard urges him to hurry, insisting everyone is waiting. It seems the prince completely forgot the appointment. They arrive at a camp fortified by a rugged wooden palisade. Sitting at the table, the prince lets out an awkward, nervous laugh. Two imposing figures stare back, surprised by his early rival. The seventh prince, Chris Moonlight, waves off the tension, asking him to drop the formalities since they are family. However, the eighth princess, Caitlin Moonlight, counters that formality is necessary for their first meeting. Chris insists on using first names, and the boy agrees with a stiff, awkward nod. These are the children of Elaine Moonlight, the fourth queen and leader of the Lycanthropes, a troublesome faction in the game. But exactly 1 year before the massacre, a catastrophic event seals their doom. Both are dead. Suddenly, the princess moves in close to inspect him. She checks for injuries, startling him with this unexpected warmth. His sister, Chris adds his own warning. Another reckless stunt will earn him a serious punishment. The boy wonders, could his ruthless siblings actually be kind deep down? He turns to his brother with a request that sounds insane. With a confident smirk, he asks Chris to hit him with full force. Pure shock and disbelief plaster their faces at his death wish. Suddenly, the scene shifts from the sunlit camp to a realm of darkness. Jagged rock the general spins like a tornado, devastating multiple adversaries in a blink. Two demons charge the glowing-eyed monster, but an enemy. Explosions light up the mountain range like fireworks. Suddenly, Shudra finds himself floating in a dark, empty void, utterly confused about how he arrived here. A woman with the prince spins around, noticing two dark silhouettes forming. He racks his brain. These figures were never in the Night Saga story. The young man, completely disoriented. He sits up and clutches his head. Was that hellscape just a dream? Carrick suddenly, the print, a holographic system notification shatters reality, or a level 1 acquired. The young prince clenches his fist, ecstasy surging through him as he finally grasps the intangible power. His guards stare. This revelation to the world. The orc delivers the report. The main force annihilated the Thunder Tribe. The young man freezes. Confusion clouds his mind. He thought and his siblings were the vanguard. General memories of the game flood his mind. Bandel isn't just a soldier. He is a legendary powerhouse, one of his absolute favorites. A spark of ambition ignites in his eyes. This is his golden ticket. He checks a cunning grip thanks to his path, but knowledge with this the prince. Shutra holds internally. It wasn't a Chris shake. The older brother out holding the completed drawing. Chris's eyes light up. You are a genius. He pulls his little brother into a bone-crushing hug. Caitlin, Chris turns. The scene reinforced. Suddenly, the prince. Why the mask? Caitlin, her eyes. The second, the group. They march. The prince. Darkness. Movement ahead. The bodyguard hisses. Chutra's ears twitch. I hear it. Something is skittering in the dark. He checks the system. His hand signal the hundreds. He hurls a flash. The young man draws his weapon. The Orcish reinforcements arrived. The rest of the patrol dove into the chaos, their massive axes crushing chitin and stone alike with devastating force. From a distance, the prince barked. Deeper into the abyss they pushed. There it was, the Carrick, that exos. He knew the behemoth used fire. Suddenly, a mysterious voice echoed, commanding Shutra to raise his blade. Whoosh. Golden flames erupted along the steel. The prince stared at the weapon, stunned by the surging power. Is that enough? Fire. The prince's in a flat special. The fire didn't. Victory. Caitlin stepped. She pressed Carrick into with a heavy Shutra etched into the memories of the boy studying the complex design. Caitlin nodded. You might be right. We need to find an inscription to see where it leads. Over here, Prince, Tara called out, pointing to a plaque on the wall. Shutra and Caitlin moved closer to inspect the ancient carvings. These weren't, what does it, Sarah, he continued, asterisk, you can read that. Caitlin, Shutra translated the warning at the bottom. To activate the gateway, pure mana must be infused into the core. Could you do the Caitlin, a blinding brilliance explodes from the magic circle's core. As the light expands, a massive holographic projection of the Gishka Mountains materializes from the orb, hovering in the air. The map pulsates, pinpointing their exact coordinates alongside portal number 3. The prince's eyes narrow. This confirms it. The legendary dwarven tunnels must be hidden right there. Carrick instantly sees the tactical brilliance. The enemy tribe is foolishly focused on the front, leaving their rear completely exposed. The secret route guarantees a devastating surprise attack from the mountains behind them. The princess calls a halt to the strategy meeting to brief her brother. Back at the base, the camp is buzzing. This discovery has ignited a wildfire of hope and excitement among the troops. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Chris pulls his brother into a crushing bear hug. He beams, declaring him a true blessing sent by the heavens to save their group. The older prince makes a solemn vow. As a reward for this game-changing intel, he promises to grant absolutely any wish the young man desires. Though Shutra tries to humble himself and refuse, his brother won't take no for an answer. As a leader and an elder, he insists. Shutra stands speechless, feeling the heavy pressure of royal generosity. Hesitantly, the boy asks if he can make a request that might sound completely insane. Chris leans in, his curiosity piqued to the limit. Shutra finally drops the bomb. He wants to learn the ultimate technique, the art of the beast god fist. The request hits his older brother like a physical blow. Shutra explains his logic. His low level prevents him from mastering weapons. But martial arts techniques, that is a different path entirely. This isn't just any punch. The beast god fist is a legendary S-rank martial art, a sacred secret passed down exclusively through the lycanthrope royal family bloodline. Seeing the hesitation, Shutra quickly backpedals. He apologizes, feigning that he expected a refusal all along to save face. But then a shock. To his absolute disbelief, Chris agrees to the request. Shutra is left stunned into silence. However, Chris sets a firm boundary. Obviously, he cannot teach an outsider the core secrets of the royal family. That is forbidden. Instead, he offers to teach the manipulation of aura, the foundation of their power. The prince's eyes light up. Is this really happening? The older brother asks tentatively if this compromised gift is sufficient. For a moment, the young man remains completely silent. Shutra furiously waves his hands. No, it's not just enough. It is absolute perfection. Chris suddenly speaks the boy's name, his tone shifting to serious gravity. The Lycan prince looks him in the eye and asks a heavy question. From this day forward, can he consider him a true brother in spirit? The word brother strikes a chord deep within Shutra. He pauses, reflecting on the weight of that bond, while the elder prince also contemplates the depth of his own offer. A genuine smile breaks across Shutra's face. He replies that he likes the sound of that. They clasp hands, a firm handshake that seals their destiny and their new alliance. Chris and Caitlin gaze at their new ally, their expressions radiating satisfaction and newfound confidence. The boy smiles back, suggesting they face the future together. Suddenly ding. A system notification flashes. A formal alliance has been established with Chris and Caitlin Moonlight. The scene cuts to the rugged mountain range, bathed in the dying light of a late afternoon sun. Deep within the Scarlet Thunder tribe's camp, the enemy is restless. Two imposing warriors stand guard at a tent entrance, vigilant and dangerous. One warrior sneers, grumbling that they didn't march all this way just to stand around. They have a dark purpose here. The camera pans to reveal a tragic sight, a figure kneeling helplessly within a binding magic circle. The guards sneer, mentioning our princess. It is the prisoner, the sixth princess, Felicia Doomblade. A quick scan of Shutra's interface reveals something interesting. His charisma stat is currently lower than everyone else's. Back in his own tent, the prince frowns at his status window. Unlike his combat stats, his charisma is crawling up, increasing by only 1 point per level. He puzzles over this nerf. Then he remembers the mechanics of the original game. Appearance and charisma were to completely different stats. Appearance dictated physical beauty, but charisma? That determined a character's ability to lead and be liked by the masses. He shrugs off the limitation. His growth rate is monstrous anyway. More importantly, he is on the verge of level 10, and he expects a massive evolution. In the lore of Night Saga, legendary heroes like Zephyr and Lodge unlock their unique skills. The moment they hit level 10, the young prince is certain the same power awaits him. But his daydream is shattered by a gruff voice. Carrick calls to him from the tent entrance. His loyal guard reports that preparations are complete. The prince nods sharply. It is time to move. The orc notices a spring in the boy's step and comments on his good mood. Shudra plays it cool, denying anything special occurred. They step out into the open air, and the sight is magnificent. The entire orc army stands assembled, waiting in disciplined silence for their leader. A confident smile curls Shudra's lips. He raises his hand and gives the command. All troops march. Under a piercing blue sky, the legion advances toward the mountain range. Their path leads them back to a familiar danger. The gaping maw of the rocky cave they explored before. Inside the cavern, chaos erupts. Orcs and lycans fight shoulder to shoulder, their blades and claws tearing through the remaining hordes of spiders. The allied army is unstoppable. They crave a path of destruction straight to the massive metal blast door. Waiting at the tunnel's end, Shudra's group finally breaches the portal hall. The advance team is already there. The prince turns to the lycan mages, demanding an immediate status report. One of the mages, his face wild with wolf-like features, confirms the coordinates. The portal is locked and stable. It connects directly to the Eska River in the Gishka Mountains. The lycan assures them the connection is flawless. The ancient dwarven construction holds true. It is as sturdy as the mountains themselves. A predatory smile spreads across Chris's face. The path is clear. He barks the final order. Prepare to move out. The war begins now. The two mages lock their hands over the orb, pouring raw mana into the core. The stone sphere erupted with a blinding blue light, pulsing with overwhelming power. Space itself tore open, forming a massive oval gateway in the center of the room. Through the shimmering rift, a desolate, rocky wasteland beckoned from the other side. Carrick and his prince stood frozen, eyes wide with pure shock and admiration. The magic before them was nothing short of a masterpiece. Shudra could barely process the sight. A stable, working portal existed right before his eyes, but his sister wasted no time, shoving him forward and demanding to know why he was hesitating. Shaking off the stupor, the young prince dashed after the group, desperate to witness the unknown world awaiting them. Stepping through the rift, the team was instantly surrounded by a landscape of jagged red stone. The prince scanned the alien terrain, completely baffled by their new coordinates. From the high vantage point of a cliff, the group peered down into the valley. There, spread out below them, lay the massive sprawling camp of the enemy. Chris smirked with grim satisfaction. His instincts had been sharp. He had successfully located the main enemy encampment. The leader quickly calculated the odds. Roughly 5,000 troops stationed below. The priority was clear: strike from the rear and incinerate their supply lines. The strategy was ruthless but simple. General Bandel would draw their attention with a frontal assault, while the infiltration units slipped in to torch the food depots. But a hooded companion suddenly cut in. Something felt wrong. A sharper look revealed the camp was too empty. The troop numbers didn't add up. Had the battle already started? A faint, rhythmic thrumming echoed from the distance, snapping the prince's attention skyward. Carrick noted the sound of a skirmish raging miles away. Immediately, the older brother barked an order: focus your aura into your eyes. Look beyond the physical range. The young man obeyed, channeling his spiritual energy. Mana flooded his optic nerves, sharpening his vision instantly. Through his aura-enhanced sight, the chaotic blur resolved into a clear battle. Caitlin identified the Thunder tribe instantly, but their opponents were a mystery. Definitely not General Bandel's forces. Shudra analyzed the battlefield. The scale was too intimate to contain to be a full clash between armies. This was something else. Then he saw it, a lone figure with flowing white hair, standing defiant against a swarm of enemy tribesmen. The white-haired warrior moved like a gale, fiercely parrying strikes and holding her ground against the relentless assault. The group watched the distant spectacle in awe, whispering the question on everyone's mind. Could these unknown fighters be dark elves? Caitlin turned. Chris suddenly observed. Shutra fell back at a magical. Chris Bandle, the commander, the team, the hollow, the general, the young. The commander stared back through the magical projection. It is someone you all know very, very well. The name dropped, and the prince. Shutra's her presence here was suspicious. Was she interfering to seize glory for her own faction, or was there a deeper game afoot? Chris broke the silence, his voice sharp. Does the Scarlet Thunder tribe even realize they've captured a princess? Ben Shutra, the light of a twisted Caitlin whips around. He argues with desperation. The seventh prince, the young prince, deep within them. Chris his hands. The prince. Shutra interrupts, his voice steady. He seeks confirmation that their primary objective is the rescue. But the prince's reply is cold. Priority 1 is scorching the earth. They are to incinerate the armory and the food depot first. His eyes narrow with a shock, but Caitlin screams. Under the soldiers weave through the jagged terrain like shadows. Suddenly, a deafening war cry shatters the silence. The demon army unleashes their fury, charging into the fray with earth-shaking force. A command perched high upon. Below, the prince. Boom. The ambush plunges the Scarlet Thunder warriors into total pandemonium. Order collapses as panic spreads like wildfire through their ranks. Seizing the moment, distant from, in the heart of the male Bandle's force, he falls. The decision is made. He shouts the order to retreat, and his warriors scramble backward, fleeing through the inferno of their burning camp. From the trap, Shutra nods to his team, confirming the mission parameters. As Chris launches the assault, the entire unit surges forward, a tidal wave of warriors crashing towards the enemy camp. The light lichen amidst the without slow. He spots. Carrick echoes the moment. Suddenly, swish, a dagger tears through the air. Shutra releases the blade with deadly accuracy, striking the ambusher dead center before the blow can land. Bullseye. Carrick stares, dumbfounded, asking when the prince mastered such a skill. Shutra just shrugs it off, claiming it's nothing special, and pushes the group to keep moving. Looming ahead, but his heart, if they tore instantly, his unique asterisk ping. Reaching inside, he spun around. The sixth Shutra. This play. Felicia. That stop. Yeah, Shutra confirmed, dropping a hint of sarcasm. Unless you think we should have just left you here. The retort left her completely speechless. Before Shutra did, but the dark. Shutra ignored. It was too late. A devastating blast of energy slammed squarely into his back before he could even react. The impact Shutra. The princess cried out, watching the devastation and horror. Through the smoke, the attacker revealed itself a hulking demon, marching relentlessly toward her. The dark, but then movement. Felicia. The figure took a step forward, clad in a terrifying aura. The smoke cleared to reveal Shutra standing tall, gripping a shimmering energy bow. New skills. Asterisk awakened. Asterisk. Surge. He released the Shutra. Bullseye. Every projectile found its mark, chaining together a symphony of explosions that decimated the enemy lines. Gripping the bow, suddenly, Shutra his eye, realization, the princess stumbled. He stood. A greedy smile curled his lips. Asterisk that power, I'll take it. Asterisk instead of dodging, he let the ice arrow strike him dead on. Asterisk crash. Asterisk the projectile exploded on contact. A bone but within that ice, however, the kinetic force, her eye, she screamed at him, tears threatening to spill. You're the weakest of us all. You have no right, no power to save anyone. Shutra stared but before he could utter a word of explanation, Felicia snatched the ice dagger from his grasp, leaving the young prince staring at the ground, stunned by his sister's abrupt move. Suddenly, he watched a transparent system window chimed in the air, confirming he had acquired a new healing skill, and that his body was fully restored. Felicia asked if the pain was gone, and Shutra quickly nodded yes, thanking her while barely catching himself before he slipped up and mentioned his secret bloodline. Just then, a thunderous roar shattered the moment, snapping both their heads toward the source of the noise. From the debris emerged a nightmare wreathed in a crimson aura. Shutra instantly identified the beast as a blood ogre, and asked if they had to go through it to survive. He confirmed there was no other way. and the siblings watched in horror as the behemoth locked onto them and began its charge. Steel gritted against teeth as the two prepared for an inevitable clash. The blood ogre smashed its fist into the earth with cataclysmic force, sending Kshatriya and Felicia leaping backward to escape the shockwave. The prince was baffled. How could something so massive move with such terrifying speed? Felicia shouted for him to buy her time to cast a spell, but Kshatriya hesitated, unsure how to hold back a monster like that. Another devastating blow pulverized the ground where they stood, forcing them to retreat further just to stay alive. Realizing there was no choice, the young man stepped up, agreeing to draw the monster's aggro. He screamed for her to prep her magic, using gamer slang she couldn't possibly understand, before shouting a command to Carrick, who yelled back that he was ready to run the same play as last time. Without wasting a millisecond, the prince mentally triggered his system inventory to pull out his trump card. Glancing at the holographic window, he confirmed the dwarven dagger was ready for action. The moment he selected it, the legendary weapon materialized in his grip, humming with raw energy. Pointing the blade downward, he drove the dagger into the soil and unleashed a violent surge of power. He roared the name of the technique, funneling every ounce of that energy directly toward his orc ally. A blinding aura erupted around Carrick, supercharging his muscles. The orc bellowed a war cry, his strength now amplified to monstrous levels. The sudden explosion of power caught the blood ogre off guard, making the beast hesitate for a fatal second. Seizing the initiative, the empowered warrior charged headlong into the fray. The monster tried to crush him, but Carrick caught the giant fist with the shaft of his axe. The collision was immense, knocking the massive creature back as it reeled from a strength that rivaled its own. Carrick saw his window of opportunity and instantly raised his weapon for a counterattack. Channeling all his accumulated might, he delivered a surgical strike to the ogre's chest, drawing a roar of agony as the damage tore through the beast. Meanwhile, Felicia began to levitate, her body bathed in a shimmering, ethereal light. With her hair dancing in the mana storm, she finished her incantation and cast a spell that coated the battlefield in a treacherous, slippery substance. The blood ogre tried to step forward to crush the orc, but its massive feet lost all traction on the slick surface. Totally off balance, the titan crashed onto its back, and the orc wasted no time, launching himself high into the air to hover directly above his prey. Looking down from the heavens, he declared that the battle ended now. He descended like a meteor, slamming his weapon into the creature's chest with earth-shattering force. The blood ogre let out one final gurgle before the light faded from its eyes. That final, crushing impact silenced the threat for good. Victory secured, Kshatriya walked through the ruins of the camp with a relieved smile, celebrating the win even while knowing more enemies were lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, a golden light enveloped him, and the familiar chime of a system notification grabbed his attention. An interface window popped into existence before his eyes, flashing with new stats. The text confirmed the sweet news. His level had hit double digits, level 10 achieved. Moments later, another message pinged. His protagonist's skill had leveled up too, and he grinned as fresh power coursed through his veins. A gift box icon appeared on the screen, and unable to resist the loot, he tapped to open his reward. The description revealed a passive skill that reduced the accuracy of incoming projectiles. Basically, a dodge buff against ranged attacks. The screen demonstrated the skill with an animation of a character weaving through a hail of arrows. Effortlessly, it hit him then. He could now replicate the legendary plot armor effect that kept main characters alive against all odds. But the celebration was cut short as a fresh wave of enemy warriors poured out of the camp, weapons drawn. The princess screamed his name, warning him of the ambush while he was distracted. But she didn't just stand there. Felicia was already priming her magic. With a single, sharp command, she summoned a violent gale that smashed into the charging warriors head-on. The gale roared with terrifying ferocity. The wind was so violent that even the prince had to plant his feet, fighting to keep from being blown away like a leaf in a storm. Analyzing the turbulent currents, he narrowed his eyes. It felt like magic, yet the frequency was completely different, something raw and untamed. Then he saw them, shimmering energy butterflies dancing in the chaos. Spirit power. It meant Felicia wasn't just royalty, She was a high-tier spirit summoner. As the dazzling assault unfolded before him, gears began to turn in his mind. A crazy inspiration took root. A smirk tugged at his lips. I wonder if I can tank a hit like that. But suddenly, a blinding flare tore through the sky, demanding the entire camp's attention. The orcs froze, heads snapping upward as the crimson light bathed the battlefield in an eerie glow. Kshatriya recognized the signal immediately. It's the retreat command. But confusion clouded his gaze. Why now? Was someone in critical danger? His troops looked to him, desperation for orders in their eyes. The prince didn't hesitate. Fall back, all units, retreat immediately. But then came the shocker. I'm going to find Caitlin. The orc general stood there, jaw slack with disbelief at the prince's declaration. Carrick stepped forward, growling in protest to join him, but Kshatriya cut him off. Trust me. There's a reason for this. Obey the order. I'm coming to. Felicia stepped up beside Kshatriya, her voice steel, leaving the orc general completely floored. She tossed her hair back. I hate owing people favors. Consider this my way of settling the debt. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. Besides, I have unfinished business with those wretched enemies. Carrick grunted, finally nodding in reluctant agreement. Stay alive, Prince, with the orc's gruff farewell. Kshatriya and Felicia sprinted through the chaotic camp. Is Caitlin really worth this risk? She panted. Kshatriya's gaze remained fixed ahead. That retreat signal, it felt wrong, too suspicious. Felicia glanced at him, surprised. You truly care about her, don't you? She is family, Kshatriya replied simply. Worrying is part of the job description. The answer hung in the air. Felicia studied his profile in silence, seeing the prince in a new light. Asterisk boomed asterisk. The roar of combat shattered the moment. From the smoke, a horde of hulking, muscle-bound demons charged straight for them with bloodlust in their eyes. In the eye of the storm stood Caitlin. She was a one-woman army, blasting back the advance with nothing but her bare fists and raw power. Enemies swarmed her from all sides, but she stood like an immovable mountain. Fearless in the face of death, she unleashed a barrage of energy spheres. Asterisk bang. Bang, bang, asterisk, but the smoke cleared, and the demons were still standing, bracing for a coordinated kill strike. Caitlin didn't flinch. In a flash of light, pure aura materialized in her grip, forming a buzzing energy blade. She vaulted into the air, a blur of lethal grace. Asterisk slash, asterisk, one strike, total devastation. Kshatriya and Felicia slid to a halt just as the demons collapsed in unison behind her. Felicia watched, impressed, just as I expected from her. Kshatriya let out a breath he'd been holding. Looks like my worry was for nothing. Spotting them, the fierce princess lowered her guard. Brother, why did you come back? The order was to retreat. I came to back you up. He shrugged. Caitlin blinked, the concept seemingly alien to her. Back me up. Then her eyes drifted to his companion. Sister. The battle-hardened warrior vanished, replaced by a beaming girl as she tackled Felicia into a bone-crushing hug. She buried her face in Felicia's shoulder. I was so scared. I'm so happy you're safe. I'm fine. Asterisk, Caitlin. Meanwhile, at the extraction point, Carrick's orcs stood guard around a massive, humming teleportation gate. Ripples Is it true? Carrick, glad to. From the Felicia off the side. The scene shift. However, Yakuza. Did he surrender? Chris slammed, changing the mood. The prince demanded to know what had brought Felicia to these ruins. Chris narrowed his eyes, his suspicion cutting through the air. Sensing his doubt, Felicia fired back, daring him to call her a liar. A tense silence stretched between them as their gazes locked. Finally, Chris sighed in defeat, ordering her to drop the subject and get some rest. Felicia nodded with a grateful smile as Chris dismissed the group, ordering everyone to recover their strength for the battles ahead. Moments later, the flickering light of campfires illuminated the soldiers as they enjoyed a rare moment of peace and a warm meal. Far from the noise, Kshatriya grinned as he reviewed his skill window in the shadows. But just as he analyzed his new techniques, a voice pierced the silence. He spun around to find Felicia standing at the cave entrance, her silhouette framed by the night, asking for permission to enter. He asked what brought her there so late, but the princess simply stared at him, her expression unreadable. Slowly, she closed the distance between them. Stopping right in front of him, she whispered his name with an intensity that froze the air. Without warning, her hand shot out, seizing his collar in an iron grip. Taken completely by surprise, the prince froze, unable to react. Felicia locked eyes with him, her voice commanding absolute obedience. Bewildered, Kshatriya. Felicia didn't hesitate. Gripping his collar with authority, she issued a bold command. He needed to strip, right here, right now. Kshatriya froze, his mind racing. Excuse me? But she cut him off. Did he want to die from his injuries? The prince could only stare in bewildered silence. She didn't have time for modesty. Felicia made it clear what she did on the battlefield was barely a band-aid. True healing required more. Her eyes glowed with intent. She needed to cast high-level restoration magic immediately to repair the devastation lurking beneath his skin. She paused, recalling the strange light that had burst from him earlier. What was that? She pressed, but Kshatriya just shrugged it off as a common occurrence. He quickly shifted gears, his expression turning serious. Leaning in with a knowing smile, he whispered that he had a special request, one only a dark elf of her caliber could fulfill. The gamble paid off instantly as her magic enveloped him. 3 magnificent healing skills flashed into existence within his status window. A grin spread across his face as he redressed. The plan was a total success. He opened his interface to admire his brand new arsenal. By baiting her into using her best magic, he had copied the spells directly into his own repertoire. A stroke of genius. But there was no time to rest. Soon, he stood before Caitlin, ready for hell. With a fierce grin, the 8th princess announced his initiation into the legendary werewolf branch of the beast fist art. This wasn't just fighting, it was the sacred martial heritage of the lycanthropes, a style feared across the continent. Kshatriya's eyes narrowed in understanding. The werewolf style was the foundation of everything. This was the key to unlocking true power. Caitlin didn't waste breath. She explained the duality of the art, the explosive external aura and the subtle, deadly internal aura. Today, he would master the flow within. Following her guidance, he shut out the world. Darkness embraced him until a spark ignited. A dormant aura began to swirl deep within his core. It was immediate. He didn't just imagine it. He could feel a torrent of raw power surging through his meridians like a raging river. This was the essence of life itself, vitality pumping through every vein, every muscle, awakening cells that had slept for a lifetime. He realized the truth. Aura at its peak wasn't just energy. It was the manifested power of the soul. As the pressure intensified, Kshatriya's eyes snapped open, blazing with light. The world seemed to slow as a golden notification shattered his vision. He had unlocked a new passive skill, protagonist physique. He scanned the description, his heart pounding. It wasn't just a stat boost, it drastically multiplied his training speed and unlocked hidden traits with every level gained. This was a game changer. A skill of this caliber defied all logic. It was the kind of cheat ability that turned mortals into gods. Comparing it to his current stats, the synergy was terrifying. He realized the system wasn't just recording his growth, it was evolving with him, unlocking features he never dreamed possible. A confident smile carved itself onto his face. With this power, the throne wasn't just a dream, it was his destiny. Fists clenched tight, he finally grasped the sheer weight of being the protagonist. But his epiphany was cut short when Caitlin called out his name. Jolted back to reality, he heard his sister questioning his focus and quickly apologized. She then declared that the real training for the beast fist art begins now. The moment the session commenced, the skill imprinted onto his soul. A powerful aura instantly manifested, wrapping around his fists in a visible surge of energy. Caitlin could hardly believe her eyes, impressed by his blinding speed and surgical precision. She praised his flawless execution of the basic forms. Kshatriya stared at his own palms, trembling with adrenaline. He fully comprehends the terrifying potential hidden within this new martial art. Just as Caitlin prepared to unveil the next technique, chaos interrupted. A soldier rushed in, panic in his voice, reporting that a catastrophe had struck. The news came from afar. Chris delivered the grim update. Karam's entire unit has vanished without a trace. Tension suffocated the room as they gathered around the map. Everyone was stunned. Chris concluded the enemy had cracked their strategy. and Caitlin immediately demanded their next counter move. Relying on intelligence provided by General Bandel, Chris traced a line across the map. His finger landed on the exact coordinates where Yakuzen and Crumb were scheduled to rendezvous. Chutra analyzed the terrain, his mind racing. The probability was high, but they had no choice. He agreed that they must take this deadly risk. With that, Chris declared their alliance with the general, forging a united front for the massive assault on the Scarlet Lightning tribe. The perspective then shifted to the imposing fortress of the Subjugation Army's main base. Inside the command center, General Bandel welcomed Chris with open arms, his booming voice full of praise for the arrival of such powerful reinforcements. Chris returned the greeting with a confident smile, noting that the old general hadn't changed a bit. As Bandel turned his attention to the princesses, Felicia cut in sharply to inquire about the status of her subordinates. Chutra stood in the background, observing the exchange with a subtle, knowing smile playing on his lips. As he gazed at the imposing commander, nostalgia hit him. General Bandel was his absolute favorite character from the game Night Saga *. Stepping out of the shadows, he formally introduced himself. Bandel's eyes bore into him like heavy stones for a long moment before he grasped Chutra's hand, acknowledging him as the 9th prince. Suddenly, reality warped around Chutra. A blinding light swallowed his vision, revealing a woman with hair as white as snow. The mysterious figure stared directly at him, her eyes shining with two distinct, mesmerizing colors. Before he could react, another presence erupted from the void. A warrior engulfed in roaring flames materialized, clad in crimson armor that burned with intensity. The two godlike entities locked eyes, a silent tension crackling between them that threatened to tear the space apart. Chutra found himself floating in the void, a tiny existence caught between the projections of these two colossal powers. The sheer pressure of the scene left him paralyzed with awe. Then, glowing symbols representing conquest and war blazed into existence before his eyes. With a violent jolt, Chutra gasped and bolted upright in his bed. Sweat dripped from his brow as he frantically looked around, wondering if it was all just a fever dream. But the memory was too vivid: the woman with the heterochromatic eyes and the burning warrior. Yet, try as he might, he couldn't identify who the red-armored figure was. His thought, the two rushed out of the tent, stepping into a hive of activity. Outside, the army moved with frantic energy, soldiers hauling supplies and weapons for the coming slaughter. Chutra, the tactical map laid it all out. General Bandel would hold the center. Chris and Caitlin would dominate the right flank, while the Dark Elves secured the rear. The march began. Reality snapped back into focus, and he realized he was already standing in the heart of a vast battlefield, surrounded by thousands of steel-clad soldiers. At the van, a savage grin spread across the general's face as he vowed to teach the enemy the true meaning of suffering. With a thunderous cry, he commanded the entire army to advance. The orcs. Bandel watched with grim satisfaction as the enemy forces began to close the distance, walking right into the grinder. But looking down, a titan as the beast rampaged, blasts of magical energy slammed into it from all sides. But the horror set in when they realized the blasts were coming from the enemy's own allies. The Scarlet, amidst the enemy had, this was its red eye. Suddenly, the earth beneath them screamed. Sharp claws tore through the soil as an army of lizardmen burst from the ground, swords flashing in the chaotic light. The ambush on the right, assessing, she warned that, channeling, he ordered the mate in the at the front, hold for mate. Meanwhile, survive. Back at the base, inside the command, General Chris gritted his, but just as the young Chutra's mind, without hesitation, she revealed, legends spoke, the revelation, her eyes, General, but Chris, his stance, Felicia opened, he wove a, but above, the prince, Chris wasn't, shut, with the evidence, his eye, that was enough. As they saw, Carrick, in the, he calculated, his gaze drifted to Felicia, riding just ahead. He closed his eyes for a heartbeat, centering himself for the trial to come. The party cut. Sudden, once there, Felicia stepped in, backing him up. She claimed to understand his logic and urged him to take point. Chutra took but their journey came to an abrupt halt. A massive, sheer rock wall blocked their path completely. The orcs, he turned, Felicia interrupted, but with a confident smirk, she declared a universal truth of their trade. Ruin explorers didn't just study history, they majored in destruction and explosives. The princess did silence. Felicia eyed the newly gaping entrance, skepticism clouding her gaze. Had they really located the legendary site this fast? It felt almost too easy. The group stepped. Smash it, there has to be. Something was off. Her gaze landed on the stone guardians lining the walls. 9 statues stood watch, yet only 3 gripped weapons. The others stood with empty, waiting hands. Caitlin, she analyzed the existing blades. These are dwarven craftsmanship. We can't just shove any old iron in their hands. The system requires authentic dwarven steel. Silence fell, broken by Shutra's casual voice. Actually, I happen to have exactly 6 of those. The demon he turned to Heavy lifting is your job, Shutra said, tossing the gear to the orc. Carrick grumbled but hauled the heavy steel. With a clang, the first dwarven sword slid into a stone grip. They worked. Click. A blinding, pure brilliance poured from the open. There it was. Felicia did. She took command, barking orders. Shutra and Carrick were to hold the center, while the others took their places around the perimeter of the magic circle. We flow with tension, focus, the resin. Hold it right. The pressure was crushing. Sweat beaded on the young man's forehead. But the demon prince grit his teeth, forcing every ounce of his strength into the ritual. Reality, the ground cracked open. A massive demonic claw tore through the earth. In a heartbeat, Shutra was standing in the center of a chaotic, ancient battlefield between demons and dwarves. Confused, Shutra spun toward the sound, his heart racing. The dwarven warriors weren't looking at him, they were rallying around the demon prince. He looked up, the voice, a heavy gasp. It wasn't a dream, that was a memory. The black dragon and Enkidu. A voice broke his trance. Did you see it too? Felicia, Carrick, it seems we. Felicia, she didn't wait for permission. She pressed her hand against the cold surface, her blood smearing across the ancient runes. Instantly, vile, dark energy exploded from the core. It latched onto her, coiling around the princess like a predator. She was being devoured alive. Felicia screamed through gritted teeth, fighting the corruption. Felicia, Shutra roared. He lunged forward, desperate to break the connection. He grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back from the abyss, but the darkness was too hungry. In a flash, the shadow surged up his arm, swallowing them both whole. With that, a cataclysmic explosion of energy detonated in the center of the room. From a distance, Carrick and Caitlin screamed desperate incantations, shouting Felicia's name in terror. But inside the blast, the young man was being swallowed whole. He screamed in agony as the dark energy consumed him. The truth was revealed. The mana of the Earth Dragon and Enkidu imposed a deadly test on anyone daring to claim their power without permission. The energy erupted over the anvil, a booming voice declaring the ultimate law. To conquer means to dominate. From afar, their 2 companions watched in horror as darkness flooded the room. When the devastating explosion finally subsided, only a single pulsing energy crystal remained on the floor. A moment later, Shutra materialized. He was kneeling, clutching the object, with half of his face shrouded in living darkness. His appearance had completely transformed, one eye glowing with an intense, otherworldly light. The scene abruptly shifts to a canyon where an orc camp lay in wait. High atop a cliff, a lookout monitored the movement below. He raised his binoculars, scanning the area with predatory focus. As he studied the camp, a sneer crossed his lips. He muttered about their foolishness, wondering if they truly thought they could remain undetected. He knelt before the commander. Down below, suddenly, 2 of them looked up in alarm. An immense fireball was descending from the heavens, hurtling straight toward their camp. The explosion struck dead center with devastating force. Several orcs were incinerated instantly in the blast radius. Then, he quickly realized he was alone. Neither Caitlin nor Felicia were close enough to assist him. As fresh explosions rocked the battlefield, Yakuzan watched smugly from the distance. He signaled, confused and the war unexpected. On the battlefield, as the demon era appeared to support Felicia, revealing the truth. This weapon was the Thunder Hammer, the destined counterpart to the anvil. She declared that Enkidu had made his choice. Shutra glanced in their direction, his presence overwhelming. Before them all, he realized the prince. With a deafening boom, he slammed the hammer against the ground, releasing a shockwave of domination energy. On the battlefield, chaos in the confusion. Seeing them standing, the green skin from his subordinate panicked, asking what was happening. Yakuzan, teeth gritted, admitted he didn't know who was controlling such terrifying mana. The war. Suddenly, a cloud facing the enemy chief, Chris declared that his time had come to an end. He offered a mercy kill in exchange for surrender, an insult that enraged Yakuzan. The tribe. Chris's eyes glowed with an intense, feral light. Channeling the fist art of the beast god, he charged forward like a wild animal unleashed. The impact as the enemy a grim high atop the cliff, the prince cast. Meanwhile, deep within the dungeon's shadows, a magical projection displayed the carnage unfolding above ground. Carrick stared. The princess panic as the real far from the group. Was this sudden? He pulled the mechanics. His gaze. Suddenly it dawned on him. She unleashed a barrage of scolding for his reckless disappearance. Rubbing his throbbing head, he could do nothing but mutter a sincere apology. Her anger. As they made their way back, Caitlin revealed that their original itinerary had been scrapped. A complication had arisen. Caitlin explained the toll on the princess's body. The trauma of her captivity under the Scarlet Lightning tribe had finally caught up with her. Despite Felicia's brave claims of being fine, her condition was volatile. There was no telling when she would open her eyes again. Without her the group lay scattered across the hall in deep slumber. Only the demon prince remained awake, leaning against a pillar with arms crossed, mind racing. He felt strangely energized. Had the level up completely restored his stamina? Sleep was impossible with this much energy coursing through him. Suddenly, a spark of inspiration lit up his eyes. This was an ancient ruin, after all. It had to be teeming with hidden weapons and legendary treasures, and likely crawling with deadly traps to protect them. He looked down at the thunder hammer gripped in his hand. The weapon hummed with power. He wondered, what were the limits of his authority as the new master of this dungeon? The emblem's authority might be limited to this location, but within these walls, his word was law. He smiled. He had just realized he held the master key to the entire domain. Nearby, Carrick was snoring loudly, blissfully unaware of his master's scheming. Shutra shook the drowsy orc awake. He grinned, gesturing for Carrick to follow him on a little excursion. The pair ventured into the depths, their path illuminated only by flickering torchlight. Carrick trembled, asking if this was wise. Shutra laughed off the orc's fear, reminding him that the dungeon itself bowed to his will. Shoving open a heavy stone door, Shutra promised high-grade weaponry lay within. Carrick peeked inside, suspicion written all over his face. His blood ran cold. "Master," he hissed, pointing at a colossal shape resting on the floor. Shutra's eyes narrowed. It was a griffin-shaped arch-golem, a construct of devastating power capable of wiping out armies. Carrick's face went pale. He whispered that a single misstep meant death and begged for an immediate retreat. Shutra ignored the orc's terror, scoffing at his cowardice. He strode past the monster, causing another massive stone gate to grind open at the corridor's end. Stepping through the threshold, Carrick's fear vanished instantly. His eyes bulged. "Treasure. It's finally here." The orc hoisted a piece of gleaming armor. Shutra nodded in approval. The craftsmanship was undeniable. Inspecting it closely, Shutra felt the hum of mana resonating within the steel. This wasn't just metal, it was high-tier magic armor. He tossed the prince. He snatched up one of the ancient gold coins, weighing it in his palm. Deciding not to waste time, he swept every useful item straight into his dimensional inventory. "Gather everything of value," he commanded Carrick. But as the orc worked, a solitary chest tucked away in the shadowy corner pulled at Shutra's attention. He approached the startled right before he stepped into the unknown, passing through the suffocatingly narrow corridor. The space suddenly expanded into a colossal, ancient chamber. The prince stood frozen, drinking in the majesty of the hidden sanctum. In the center, hovering above a pristine pedestal, an object pulsed with peculiar energy. He didn't need a name. He stood before. There was drawn, but the moment his fingertips brushed the cold metal, red warning screens flooded his vision. Error, insufficient level, mana, physical and mental strength to low, permission, the final, in a boom, a shockwave of pure power erupted from his body, filling the entire hall as the relic fused with his very being. Shutra gasped, his stat, how is this the name *gauntlet of Enkidu * glowed on his display. It wasn't just good, It was a cheat item far beyond his wildest expectations. Kshatriya stiffened. The orc had seen it all, the flash of light, the gauntlet appearing from thin air. Kshatriya's mind raced. He confirmed the event, but worry gnawed at him. Asterisk, if word gets out about my inventory ability, it's game over. Asterisk. But Carrick, as he turned, Carrick agreed instantly. They retreated, leaving the secret chamber behind and returning to the main treasure room. But as he threw up, Jack, back in the main hall slowly, with Kate, Kshatriya saved, Kshatriya, Felicia, don't forget, Felicia, the long night, back at the base camp, General Vandal's voice boomed across the grounds. They had finally returned, triumphant and alive. The general, amidst the seventh, the prince, Kshatriya walked, the remnant, hearing the sudden, far from the safety of the camp, Kshatriya's vacation, began in the depths of a secluded forest. Bam! A fist buried itself deep into his gut. The orange, as he, gasping, for the first, only after, Kshatriya what, Caitlin, Kshatriya's eyes narrowed with resolve. He would master the Lycan's secret technique, no matter the cost. The princess, Kshatriya, it was he realized, floating, the pillar of light slowly faded back into the forest. Blue windows flashed before his eyes, his beast fist art and aura levels were skyrocketing. Caitlin, ding, he clicked, the aura, unknown to, the observer, inside the command tent. Kshatriya sat across from Caitlin. He decided it was time to probe. Tell me about Felicia. He knew Felicia, Caitlin, there hadn't been a fight. She hesitated, then dropped the bomb. The tension likely stemmed from Chris and Sylvan. His mind raced, but what was, suddenly, Chris didn't the work, hearing the order, before they, with a Kshatriya returned. Finally, inside the vast, silent throne room, a solitary figure sat motionless in the shadows. The darkness lifted, revealing